week and a half since GPT-5 launched, OpenAI has kind of found itself scrambling to respond to both public outcry and some company missteps that they've made and acknowledged related to this launch. So kind of a rough timeline of what's been going on here. So GPT-5 drops on August 7th, just one day after OpenAI is already dealing with a crisis. Many users were up in arms about the fact that the company basically on almost a whim decided to get rid of legacy models. And at the time, everyone was forced to use GPT-5 rather than pick between the new model and the older ones like GPT-4o. Users at the time were also upset about some surprising rate limits, especially for the Plus subscribers, and the fact that GPT-5 at the time didn't seem all that smart. Now, Altman took the lead posting on X on August 8th to address these concerns. He noted at the time that OpenAI would double GPT-5 rate limits for Plus users. Plus users would be able to continue to use 4.0 specifically, and that there had been an issue with the model's auto switcher that switches between models that had caused temporary issues with its level of intelligence. Now, just a few days later, on August 12th, Altman shared even more changes. So users can now choose between auto, fast, and thinking models in GPT-5. The rate limits for GPT-5 thinking went up significantly, and paid users also got access to other legacy models like O3 and GPT 4.1. Altman also said the company is working on updating GPT-5's personality to feel, quote, warmer, since there was also backlash about that from users too. So, Paul, this has been an interesting one to follow. Like, it's good to see OpenAI responding quickly to user feedback, but trying to keep up with all these changes that they're making to this model right out of the gate. I don't know about you, but it's giving me whiplash personally. Like, what's going on here?
Oh yeah, I mean I've been trying to follow along obviously daily. I mean we've been tracking this and reading the updates from Sam, reading the updates from OpenAI. For the Exec AI newsletter on Sunday, like I was going through on Saturday morning trying to kind of like understand what's going on, reading the system card, like trying to like understand the different models and how they relate them. Because in the system card they actually show like, okay, if you're on 4.0, the new one is GPT-5 main. If you were using 4.0 mini, the new one is GPT-5 main mini. If you were O3, which you and I loved the O3 model,
Mm-hmm.
that's now GPT-5 thinking. If you were O3 Pro, which you and I both pay
Yeah.
for Pro, that's now GPT-5 thinking Pro. Because I've actually been I've been working on a couple of things, like finalizing some of these courses for the Academy launch. And I use deep research. I use the reasoning models. So I use Gemini 2.5 Pro, and then I often would use O3 Pro. And I'm like, wait, what model am I using? Do I use the thinking model? Do I use oh, wait, no, it's the thinking pro. And I'm back to like this confusion about what to actually use. And it's tricky because honestly, like we talked about this on the last episode. I didn't have the greatest experience in my first few tests of GPT-5 and this router where it's like, I don't even know if it's using the reasoning model when
Yeah.
I'm asking it something that would require reasoning because it wasn't telling you what model it was using. So I wanted the choice back, but it's like I wanted the choice hidden. Like I want to eventually trust that the AI is just going to be better at picking what model to use or how to surface the answers for me. But it was very obvious initially that that was not the case, that the router wasn't actually doing a great job, or it wasn't, at least the transparency was missing from it. So I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked a lot. You covered a lot of the things they changed. I don't want to like reiterate a lot of that. I think that maybe there's just like business and marketing and product lessons to be learned by everyone here. Like as you think about your own company and you think about your customers and like doing these launches. I mean, and even top of mind for me, honestly, with our AI Academy rollout, you can take missteps. Like you're moving fast. Like there's lots of moving pieces, as was with the GPT-5 launch. You got product working on a thing, you got marketing doing a thing, you got leadership doing their thing, and like somehow you got to bring it all together to release something. And when you're doing things fast, like you're not always going to get it perfect. But you try and think ahead on these things. And so I don't know, like I think they have some humility. Like Sam, again, you can judge however you want the decisions they made and whether the models was rolled out properly. But at least they're just stepping up and saying, yeah, we kind of screwed up. Like he admitted this to, some journalists on Thursday. Like it just wasn't, we didn't do it right. There was a bunch of things we should have changed. And so I think part of this is interest in the model, and part of it is, we can all kind of learn. They're taking risks out in the open that a lot of companies wouldn't take, and they're launching things to 700 million users. Like most of us in our careers would never launch to that many people, and it's not going to be perfect. So I don't know. I think that's part of what I've been fascinated by this whole process, is just watching how they've adapted. And I spent a fair amount of my early career working in crisis communications, and it's like a case study, a live case study of all this stuff. So I don't know. I think it's intriguing. I think the changes they're making make sense. I think they'll figure it out. But like I said last week, my biggest takeaway from all this is they don't have a lead anymore. Like that was the biggest thing I was waiting for with GPT-5 was it going to be head and shoulders better than Gemini 2.5 Pro and the other leading models? And the answer is no. It does not appear to be a massive leap forward. And I fully expect Gemini, to have a newer model soon, and the next version of Grok and the next version of Claude to probably be at least scoring wise better than GPT-5. So I think that's the most significant thing of all of this, is that the frontier models have largely been commoditized, and now it is the game changes. It's no longer who has the best model for a year or two run. It's now all about all the other elements of this.
What also jumped out to me from a very practical kind of applied AI day-to-day perspective is you really, really, really need to have a process for cataloging and testing your prompts and your GPTs, since GPTs are going to be forced over to the new models at some point as well. That's
October, I think they said.
Yeah, I think it's like 60 days from the announcement. So yeah, that put it roughly in October.
Yeah, I got an email actually over the weekend that said your GPTs would be default to 5 as of October.
Yeah, and I think that's not necessarily the end of the world. There are ways around if your GPTs break, but if you're not at this stage, if you're relying on GPTs or certain prompting workflows to get real work done, you probably want to be testing those with other models too. Because if something like this happens, if there's a botched rollout, issues with launch, whiplash back and forth between new things being added or taken away, that can get really chaotic if you're fully dependent on a single model provider, I think.
Yeah, not to mention all the SaaS companies who build on top of these models through the API. If the API gets screwed up, if the model doesn't perform as well, then all of a sudden you may not even know you're using the OpenAI's API within some third-party software product like a Box or HubSpot or Salesforce, Microsoft. Like they're all built on top of somebody else's models, and if the change affects the performance of the thing, all of a sudden it affects the way your company runs. And yeah, these are very real things that you honestly need to probably contingency plan for when these impacts happen. Like we've talked about it before on the podcast. Like, what if the API goes down? Like, what if the solution is just completely not available, and your company, your workflows, your org structure is dependent upon this intelligence, these AI assistants, AI agents, and then they're just not available, or they don't perform like they're supposed to, or they got dumber for 3 days for some reason. Like, these are very real things. Like, this is going to be part of business normal moving forward. And I don't know anybody who's really prepared for that.
Yeah, I know we haven't done this at SmarterX, and we're probably some ways away from doing this, but at some point you probably are going to just want to have backup locally run open source models, so you have access to some intelligence, right?
Yeah,
if something goes down, I mean, those change all the time, but that might be worth a long-term consideration, especially if you're like, because there's going to be a point we've talked about where as AI is infused deeply enough in every business, you won't be able to do anything without it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we just upgraded the internet connections at the office, and like you're saying, like, it's almost like that, where we're keeping the new main line, but then you keep the old service, which isn't as good, but it functions. Like, you can still function as a business if it goes down. So you have 2 different providers, and then if one goes down, hopefully the other, redundancy is there, even if it's not as efficient, as powerful. And yeah, it's an interesting perspective. Like, you could see where you have, the more efficient, smaller models that maybe run locally that, you build, and maybe they're just the backup models. But yeah, I mean, people are going to be very dependent upon this intelligence, and Yeah, you got to start thinking about the contingency plans for that. And that's where the IT department, the
Mm.
CIO, the CTO, that's where they become so critical to all of this.